time ago, maybe over 20 years ago, and I read the first book, novel that you wrote, the Great American Belly.
Yes.
And then we invited, if you remember, to our graduate center for a performance. And so since then, I think I have known, and that was a pleasure to have you here today again,
yes,
after so many years.
And I saw you at Stony Brook last October when we had a conference as well.
That's right, on Italian-American writers. Maybe we could start by saying, what is your formal education, so that we have a little background?
Yes, well, I worked my way through a state college education. I went to what's now Montclair University in New Jersey. I went to public schools prior to that, Passaic Valley High School in Little Falls, New Jersey. Then I won a scholarship in world drama for the Catholic University of America Acting and Drama Department, which is a very illustrious theater department. Many famous critics like Walter Kerr and many famous producers, also Michael Christopher, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. So it was a very active drama school, and I got my Master of Fine Arts in World Drama there in Washington. Your
first job was as a journalist, right?
Yes, that's correct. I was a journalist, an intern journalist in Selma on WSLA TV during the time of the Civil Rights Movement, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, the civil rights demonstrations. Oh yes, I was right in the thick of the heat of that moment.
Yeah.
With the sit-ins taking place in Selma and the freedom rides on the buses, where we were integrating the buses and the restaurants in Selma, and there was a huge war going on.
Since we are talking about your story here on the short story book of today, here it's in bed with the exotic enemy. In fact, one of the short stories, the first one, deals with your experience in Selma, Alabama.
Yes.
I thought, or I concluded, that there must have been some sort of autobiographical short story.
There certainly is an autobiographical element to that story, The Bleeding Mimosa.
Yeah.
And it's about my adventures in the town of Selma. And my work as a television journalist. I was one of the first whites to integrate Deep South television. People may not remember, but in those days, all the African-American shows, and there were only a few of them, were kept separate from the so-called Caucasian or white.
So you accepted a job in a black television?
Well, no, WSLA TV was a white television station, but it had an all-black gospel show. And I dared to go on the all-black gospel show making an announcement, a public service announcement about freedom rides and sit-ins. And so I was one of the first journalists to integrate Deep South television. The next morning, a burning cross from the Ku Klux Klan on the lawn. And I was arrested in the middle of the night and abused in the jail cell by the Ku Klux Klan. The only law for miles around in those days was also mixed in with the Ku Klux Klan, so that both the sheriff or assistant sheriff of a town would also be a member of the KKK in those days.
Wow.
So there were no police to call for help because the police were all often involved.
In fact, this is a historical event, which I think is very hot still in the American history, recent American history. And you were right there, and then as a journalist at TV, so it must have been exciting to be in a hotbed of civil rights movement.
Well, it was as exciting and horrifying because I was very innocent and young, 21. I was on a semester from college as an intern journalist in a television station. I was doing women's news as well, and they made me change my name to Dorothy Jeffries because Daniela Gioseffi was too much for the Deep South. They didn't like long Italian names on Southern television either in those days.
Yeah. The short story talks about also some violence that happened to the protagonist.
Yes.
That is fictional or?
No, that's real. I was abused by the Ku Klux Klan, and it was a frightening experience. And it wasn't that I was so brave, it's just that I was young and idealistic, and I had no idea the trouble I was getting myself into. I had no idea. But I thought I was simply standing up for what's correct and right, is that all people are equal, created equal. And so I was, you know, there's plenty of prejudice against Italians, and many people are unaware that the greatest lynching in U.S. history was of a group of Italians in 1891 in New Orleans. So it wasn't good to be an Italian or a Spaniard or an African American in those days.
It's ironic that here is a sheriff representing the state, representing the system, and has such an abuse on other individuals,
Yes.
other citizens.
In the story, I made him the sheriff, but he was actually in real life a deputy sheriff. But you know, the story is a little changed and actually it took me 30 years, Vito, to tell that story because I was so horrified and traumatized, and I didn't want my father to know what I had been through.
He was against you going down
Well,
there.
he didn't want me to go simply because he was protecting his sweet, innocent daughter, and I was at that time virginal and sweet, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And he was worried about me, and he had a bad heart. So I never told him because he would have been mortified, and he might have had a heart attack. And so I never told till 30 years later the story of what happened. In those days, there was no feminism, so women didn't talk so much about such abuse.
Obviously, the aspect of the young girl doing a job, trying to go ahead in profession, and the abuse by this sheriff shows also the abuse that sometimes the government representative, in the name of the government, abuse the people themselves.
Oh,
and
always,
in the next
through history.
Short story that you present, The Exotic Enemy, which is part of the title here,
Yes.
there is one father who tells the son, you know, you have to be careful because the government sometimes kills people like us.
In that story, it's the story of a Jewish American, because in the book, In Bed with the Exotic Enemy stories and novella, I deal with all issues of prejudice, not just against African Americans or Italian Americans, but against all ethnic peoples, and against women and beautiful people and disabled people, and every manner of prejudice. And of course, the story, The Exotic Enemy, shows how there's prejudice against all groups, but it's the story of a Jewish American boy whose father teaches him to handle a gun, because he said, when the SS come for your family, they should not be the only ones with the guns.
You must have a gun. Obviously, I read the two books, and if I were to reduce all your work in 3 words, I came up with these 3 words. See how good or bad I am in this. One word would be empathy.
Yes.
Empathy for the oppressed or for people who are in bad luck. Justice against prejudice or against injustice. And the image of Mother Earth as a fertile, mysterious nature that procreates. And so it has to do with women and the myth of the Mother Earth. So I think these are throughout your books. It's amazing. I don't know.
Well, you're quite correct. I think those are 3 major themes. And as I've grown older, I celebrate nature a great deal in my book, Word Wounds and Water Flowers. And I've been a New Yorker for 28 years and recently moved to the country where I had the opportunity to learn more about nature and wildlife, and that has entered my poems and work.
Must we say that when you came to perform for us at the graduate school in 1979, 78,
Yes.
you did a beautiful performance, which was what, symbolic of...
Well, I called it The Birth Dance of Earth, a celebration of women and the earth in poetry, music, and dance. But it was based on something that people think of nowadays as a belly dance, but which was really an ancient Egyptian Moresco fertility dance, woman's dance of life in many cultures.
That was beautiful.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it.
Yes,
that was the beginning of my writing. Well, I had been writing, but that was my first big book, The Great American Belly, from Doubleday, and I was thrilled. And I remember that was a long time ago now.
Yes, yes, it is. It happens to be. One more short story which deals with the problem of prejudice and hate is the story of